When we're looking into what to build, I wanted to make sure that I had this huge problem to solve, right? Because in my mind, it will only make sense to start a company and become an entrepreneur if the opportunity was big enough.
Yeah.
Right? Working at Uber in those years, that was fantastic. That experience changed my life. The thing that I learned the most at Uber was the impact of having a high density of talent when building a business.
Hello and welcome to Brazil is Not for Beginners. Today my guest is Tsai. He is the founder and CEO of Stay, a private pension company here in Brazil. He has a long history of working in the tech ecosystem. Tsai, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. We've talked about doing this before. I think we're both semi-foreign founders, or I was a semi-foreign founder. So we shared some love of the Brazilian way, I guess is maybe the way to say it. But you have an early stage startup focused on private pensions, like I said. You've been in the startup ecosystem for a while with some ups and some downs. I want to hear about those as well. But maybe to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be sitting in this chair?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so thanks, Miles, for
pleasure,
having me. We have been discussing this podcast for a while. So very, very happy to be here. So a little bit about myself. So as you said, I'm almost semi-Brazilian. So I am Taiwanese originally. So I was born in Taiwan. I consider myself, Brazilian in my heart. Legally,
Da coração.
No coração, but my documents doesn't show, but don't show. But I do feel very Brazilian. I moved here with my parents when I was still very little. That was in '96, I believe. We moved to São Paulo first. They didn't like São Paulo much. Too many people, too busy, and then we ended up moving to the country. So a place called Araraquara.
I've heard of it.
So it's a very fun name, right?
Yeah, that's fun.
So people who go to college in São Paulo, the state of São Paulo or the city of São Paulo, they usually know Araraquara because you have universities there, but also you have a lot of the games between the universities are usually held in Araraquara. So so people tend
college town.
College town. I eventually moved to São Paulo for university. Then that at some point, I think was my third or fourth year in the university, I got this scholarship from Goldman, and I spent some time in the U.S. So I studied in New Haven, Connecticut for some time, and then I ended up starting my career in banking, trading because of that scholarship. At the time, I think I was supposed to work at Goldman because they
scholarship.
Because they paid my ticket, my everything. But they didn't have the exact position that I wanted, so I wanted to be a derivatives trader, currency.
That's a little bit different than pensions.
It is. They didn't have that position, and then someone at Morgan Stanley found out that I was looking for this position, and they had one opening for a trader looking at emerging markets in the Americas, and I ended up starting my career at Morgan Stanley. And then after that, I spent a few years doing that. Decided to do something else eventually. Now moved to France, to Paris. Spent a few years in Paris, studying international economic policy. I wanted to work
different than pensions.
Also very not close at all to pensions. And then I spent a few years there. I wanted to work in government at the time. During those years in Paris, I decided not to. That going to government wasn't something that I wanted to do. and I moved. Then I decided to move back to Brazil. I had this great job opportunity. So there was this team that was starting to build Uber Brazil.
Yeah.
And then that's when I came back and joined that team. We built
early tech ecosystem in Brazil.
very early.
So I want to get to that, but if I can stop you for a second, because I feel like we'll go sequentially, and
Sure.
I want to hear about Uber, and 99 was another one, Hash, which was maybe the down, and I want to hear about that. But you came here young, Taiwanese, living in Brazil. Brazil, as I've talked about many times, is known for its Japanese population here. I think Sao Paulo is the largest Japanese population outside of Japan, right? You don't run into many people from Taiwan here, although I did at a Chinese New Year lunch recently, actually, which was quite interesting. Also came as a young person. But I'm curious, what was it like growing up Taiwanese Brazilian or Taiwanese in Brazil? If you could just share about that, that's just super interesting.
Yeah. So now that I'm a bit older, I
can reflect back on it.
Yeah, I do.
Laugh on the pain, right?
Yeah, because when I was young and I wouldn't think much about it, and when I look back, I think it had ups and downs.
Okay.
So when I was here very young, like 5, 6 years old, so I got along super well with Brazilians, with the culture, with food, everything.
Okay.
So I would say that compared to my sisters, I adapted much better.
Were they older or younger?
They were older.
Okay.
They were older.
Yeah.
And maybe being older, being woman, the whole experience is a lot more different, a lot different than my own experience. So mine was very easy. I adapted super fast. Maybe because I also play a lot of football, Brazilian football, soccer.
Yeah.
That helped. Being a boy playing soccer.
Yeah.
In school, that just helps a lot. So there was this period, when I was younger, that was super easy. But strangely, as I grew older in my teens, I started to have this identity crisis. It was very hard, and I think because I couldn't feel 100% Brazilian, I had in my mind that maybe I was 100% Taiwanese, right? That's why I felt out of place in Brazil sometimes. And funny thing, when we were going to, my parents, they decided to give me a trip back to Taiwan after 10 years.
Okay.
So I was 15 at the time. And then I go back to Taiwan and I found out that I'm actually also not 100% Taiwanese.
Yeah.
Right? They even call me ABC, which is American-born Chinese, right? One would imagine that I'll be, be super upset. But then actually, it had the opposite effect. Maybe I kind of let go that imagination of having this place where I would belong. Then I just knew that. So I kind of felt free.
Right. You can kind of fit anywhere, though.
I could just fit anywhere. So, back, I think that was a game changer. But I think when I was like 12, 13, that was like very tough moments.
And those are hard ages, regardless, right?
They are, yeah.
Being an immigrant, I can imagine, is also hard. But the freedom must have been really nice. And I'm curious. I know I paused your story there, but we can get back now to the tech ecosystem maybe, and how that's influenced it. Because if you feel free, then you can challenge things and you can move to different teams. So anyway, you grew up Taiwanese in Brazil, in a smaller city. You went abroad, thought you were going to work in derivatives, thought you were going to work in government. Now you're at early Uber in Brazil.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. So how did you come to the conclusion coming back that you wanted to work in startups in Brazil? Because at that point, there weren't many, right? Like,
No.
This is early teens Brazil. And it's funny, I think you're the third person from those early Uber years that I've had on this podcast, with a few others. But what made you want to do that? What attracted you to Uber?
So at the time, I think I was thinking about rejoining finance, banking,
Okay.
the industry. So that was kind of what I had in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this friend of mine from the university here in Sao Paulo. He spent so when me and him we left, when we were studying at the uni in Sao Paulo, the most prestigious jobs were banking and consulting, right?
Yeah.
So you would, going to Morgan Stanley, Goldman,
McKinsey,
BCG. Yeah, that's kind of the most prestigious jobs you could get. He went to BCG and I went to Morgan Stanley. And when I came back, I think he just started at Uber.
Okay.
And Uber needed people, right, to build their whole operations in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And that's when I think he contacted me, I won't remember. And he told me, you have the type of profile that,
analytical.
Yeah. And analytical was a big part, right? They'll send me this math test.
Yeah, I remember doing that math test also.
Yeah. And then when they interviewed me, I was like, I'm a very finance, banking, trading guy. Helping build and run an operation is not something that I have experience on. And they were like, but your math test was great. So you can do math, so the rest you can learn.
Okay.
And then that's how. Then I decided. I thought a little bit about it. Tech was, as you said, was very early in Brazil, so nobody was going to tech at the time. But we can also, talk a little bit more about it. But I was thinking about going back to banking and trading because that was my comfort zone, but that wasn't exactly the environment I wanted to be in.
Okay.
So I was like, why not
give it a try?
Give it a try. I loved it. In working at Uber in those years, that was fantastic. That experience changed my life. I didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
But the density of talent that Uber in the early days, I don't know how it is right now. But, you look around, so many, so people from all the best places were going to Uber. There was this momentum, mm-hmm. this ambition. It was still during the Travis Kalanick years at Uber. Yeah. So it was amazing. So and it was funny because people would tell me, Uber is tough, right? Because I think compared to Google, Meta, maybe it's a little bit more stressful and then more demanding in some ways.
Different point of their trajectories, right? It was a company trying to find its way, growing, aggressive.
That's true. But
Meta and Google at the time were established companies, right?
True. That's also true. But also, I think Google and Meta, they have their business are high margin, low in operational intensity type of business. It's like more tech, and high margins. Uber is very, very tech. Then we can get into it. Mm-hmm. Very, very tech, but also very operational. But the margins are very different from Google and
it's not a SaaS solution.
Yeah. So I think that creates a pressure mm-hmm. in terms of excellence and efficiency that you might make, you can be a little bit less efficient and still make a lot of money, I assume, at Google, but at Uber that was a little bit different.
Yeah, ad tech, I guess, is just different, right?
Yeah, so in that scenario, people were like, Uber is tougher and, but coming from Morgan Stanley, mm-hmm. It was, for me, was just perfect. It wasn't
What? So, I mean, amazing. And like I said, PK came on and Amanda Martins came on this podcast previously.
Oh, you know PK?
Yeah.
Cool.
PK came on the podcast, like I said.
Cool.
I was messaging with him the other day. Actually, we trade book ideas. So I was sending him what I'm reading these days.
Who's the other person you mentioned?
Amanda Martins.
Oh yeah. I also know her. Yeah, I also know her. Yeah.
So also a guest, a previous guest on this podcast. For anybody that wants to go back to the older episodes, both were really great. But what kind of things did you take away? You were also at 99, right? So you spent this period. How long were you in rideshare for? And I guess more importantly, like, what did these early years working for these early tech companies, really some of the first startups in Brazil, teach you about operations, like you said, operational excellence, scaling companies? What did you learn that you kind of took away from that experience?
Yeah.
Other than all the fun.
So I think the thing that I learned the most at Uber was the impact of having, a high density of talent.
Yeah.
When building a business. So because Uber, when you look at Uber in Brazil, I don't have the exact numbers nowadays, but I assume it's still the largest operation in the world. It's still Uber Brazil, and
it's certainly one of them. I'm not sure it was the biggest.
So at our time, it was the largest operation, in the Uber world, and São Paulo city was the largest. And people, because of that success, people might assume that it's easy to build something like Uber, but it's actually very challenging. But when you have a group, and not just a small group, but a very large group of very, very capable people, it makes a world of difference,
Yeah.
And I think that's what I learned. So when right after Uber, I will always try to hire the best people, no matter what. So that's what I learned at Uber. How good people, smart people, talented people, how much difference they can make.
Yeah.
And then at 99 was a bit of different story, because when I joined 99, I believe that at the time 99 had like single digits market share.
Okay.
Probably around 70 or 80% of headcounts that Uber had. So Uber had 92, 93% market share.
With
and
a tiny percentage of the market or of the headcount, yeah.
Yeah, so if you divide the market share by headcount, it was very, very different. So I would say those years at 99 were actually more difficult than the ones I had at Uber, because building something turns out it's much easier than rebuilding something, or turning around something.
Yeah.
So it was actually very, very challenging. The first 6 months at 99, for most of the days, I would arrive at 5:30 a.m. and leave at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bit earlier, sometimes later, but that kind of my
long days. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very long days. And I think what I learned at 99 was a bit different. So eventually, talent-wise, we started catching up.
Yeah.
We hired amazing people, and then we started catching up. But what made us go from single-digit market share to almost 40% market share in Brazil was actually, I think at 99, because we were the underdogs, we would just consistently take more risk.
Okay.
Because we knew that we had a lot less attention from the press, from anyone actually. So we just kept taking more risk, calculated risk, but still risk. So, so what I took away from my experience at 99 was, you won't get everything right, but what you have to do is make sure that you get more things right than wrong.
Okay.
So we made so much mistakes at 99. You wouldn't believe it. Now we laugh about it, but at the time it was like, how come this happened? We made so many mistakes, but you just hire good people, and then you start taking more risk, and you just make sure that you make more right decisions than wrong decisions, but you end up making both of them, wrong and right.
Limit the downside, but take them.
Yeah, take them, but don't stop taking risks. And yeah, I think in comparison, because Uber was just leading, the market, they were probably, I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell anymore, but they were probably more conservative than we were. And 899 was that's probably my learning. And that was my first time working at a Brazilian company also.
Okay.
So it was my first time experiencing Brazilian corporate culture. So that's
because even though it was a startup, it had gotten big.
Yeah, it was very big. Yeah. It was already huge when not in terms of market share, but in terms of the size of the company, it was already very big. Yeah.
Okay.
So those my main learnings.
So density of talent, hire well. How do you, I guess, and the other piece being the calculated risk, how do you think about those two things? And I want to keep going, but while we're on this point, how do you think about finding that talent and building that environment that attracts the density of talent? And how do you also think about kind of taking those calculated risks? What are the ways that you measure that?
I think there are a lot of smart people, right?
Yeah.
Some competent or smart people, they would prefer to choose more comfortable options in life in general, and that's fine. So it's not just a matter of hiring talented, smart people, but talented and smart people that want to do great things.
Yeah.
And when you interview them, you can tell, right? There's this intensity component that ambitious people have that makes a lot of difference. And how to attract them is you need to show them that you can fulfill their ambition, right?
Okay.
More than anything, they have to feel like they can fulfill their ambition working for you or at your company.
Okay.
So I think one of the reasons why I choose Uber at the time, I had other offers from also larger tech companies, larger than Uber. And one of the things that actually attracted me to Uber was, you might look at Travis, TK, and think him as something that was, someone that was, maybe because he left Uber, right? And he didn't leave in good terms.
Yeah.
But his ambition, his energy, he wanted to conquer the world.
Yeah.
For people who also want to conquer the world,
That was
Uber,
attractive. Yeah.
That was attractive, and Uber was the place for those kind of people. So when I look at the company we are building now, it's also the same, right?
Yeah.
That's something that I bring up a lot. So you need to have that ambition, that intensity. Because smart people, we do screen for that.
Yeah.
Hire from the best schools, etc.
Companies, yeah.
Yeah, best companies. But then some people go to the best schools, go work at the best companies, but they are not ambitious, right? They're not intense.
And so super interesting, but I was also curious about that part about the calculated risk, and how do you manage taking these calculated risks as an organization?
Yeah, so from my experience working in tech, but also in trading, I think people in general are more conservative than we think.
Yeah.
Because in the end, right, when we're building a company, but also when we're trading, there's just a lot of unknowns, right? You just cannot possibly know everything. I remember when the trading floor, we will give a price for dollar, but then what's the correct price, for the dollar against Brazilian real, and we can model everything, but in the end, we still probably miss, the exact number.
Right.
And when it comes to tech, I think very similar, right? Because things just change so fast all the time.
Yeah.
it's really hard to predict if your decision are going to be correct or not. So the way I think it is it a one-way door or two-way door, right?
Yeah, the Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. So that's I think that's a first thing you need to think about, which is if it's a decision that there's no going back, then yeah, you have to be more careful. But what I realize is that people will just be very conservative, even if it's a two-way door. Even if they can go back from that mistake,
Yeah.
they will still not make a decision and go for it. So at 99, for example, we will make these risky decisions that might, burn a lot of money. One of them, for example, was when I joined 99. So I did my calculations, and I found out that it was overall the 99 marketplace was very undersupplied. So a lot less drivers than the platform is supposed to have.
Okay.
The thing is, we needed to change that fast, right? And by changing fast, we just opened, several acquisition programs. One of them, which is the referral program, it was plagued by fraud.
Okay.
Right? And so
I'd get a bonus if I referenced Tsai, but I'd make somebody up. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
I mean, welcome to Brazil, right?
yeah. So you have these people, referring drivers that are non-existent, or they refer their mom, but then he'll be driving his mom's place and all of that, right? And in our understanding was the thing that we will lose the most if that proved to be wrong was money, right?
Yeah.
But we were not short of money at the time, right?
Okay.
But
You needed drivers, right? And
Yeah.
It was this. So I'm in payments, obviously, right? And there's always the acceptance question. You could have zero fraud if you want to accept zero transactions, right?
Yeah.
So how do you want to turn the needle towards the fraud measure?
Yeah.
Is the question. And what do you want to? Where's the trade-off that you want to maintain there? And I think that's the key piece.
Yeah, and there's also one thing, when we're discussing that was so fraud was a problem, but not having enough drivers was also another problem.
Yeah.
But what could us at 99 could do? We could prevent fraud.
Or you can get drivers.
Yeah, but we could not create, or just we could not internally do, just create out of thin air drivers. Had to bring them in, right?
Yeah.
So
it becomes the cost of acquisition, right?
Yeah.
It's just that you factor it in that there's a percentage fraud that, if it should cost $10 to get a driver, now it's going to cost 12, right?
Yeah.
Because of the fraud factor, and you model that out.
And then I would have remember very well this time when this general manager from one of the regions in Brazil, he called me on a Sunday, and he was like, "Tsai, so we are losing like X millions in the last few days," and then I did my math, my calculations, and I was like, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
And the only thing he told me, this general manager, was, okay, so but when we go present these numbers, and then the money that we're burning, you need to stand by my side.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, of course, yeah, I'll stay by your side, of course. But yeah, so
which also gives him the ability to take the risk because
Yeah.
you're willing to stand with him, and he's not going to face that trend, that challenge, I guess. And yeah, interesting.
So if you punish mistake,
yeah,
then you won't have people taking risks, right?
Yeah.
So there was this Chinese colleague of ours, that's one of the most senior Chinese at the time at 99. It was funny because this colleague of mine made a huge mistake. It cost like company, I think, tens of millions.
Okay.
And I remember like we get in the room, like he was called in the room. I was already in the room, and this Chinese guy was like, this telling, right, I won't give his name away, but telling him, John, this was a very expensive mistake.
Yeah.
I hope you learn from it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. You can live.
I remember actually that when we wound down my startup, that was what all of my investors asked me. None of them were angry that they lost the money, but they all asked, so what did you learn? Right? Did you learn something? Right?
Yeah.
That was the point, is come away with this, knowing something new, going into it. And it ties actually into this risk-taking thing. And I'm curious, I want to get to stay, I want to stop at Hash first, because I think that's really important. And I'm sure there's lots of learnings from that one. But the B2B sales, right? So you're doing private pension and you're selling to companies, and you face this reticence on risk taking on the other side, right? The hardest thing to do when you're selling to another business is just getting them to do anything, right? Just a change, buying a product, doing anything is really hard because that's them taking a risk. Yeah. And so I want to get to that. I don't want to answer it now, but I'm going to plant that question in the back of your head so we can come back to it. But so you were at 99, you were at Uber, density of talent, calculated risk taking, two-way doors. Then you moved on to Hash, which is a payments company, and was one of the, I guess, the darlings of the fintech scene for a little while. So can you tell us about that experience and really just what happened for people that are not familiar with the story?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, so Hash was at some point, very hot in our ecosystem, right? Very hyped. We did our rounds with great funds.
What attracted you to payments? So you were at rideshare first. What were your payments and Hash? Was it just that it was this big growing company, or was there something about payments that you really liked?
Yeah. So I was at 99 at the time, and I was seeing some of my friends and the people that were there with me in the trenches, leaving to do something else, because things at 99 at some point started to stabilize a lot, right? And some of the people that were there building, they started to leave, and that's when I started considering, should I also leave? When I communicated to the people that I was leaving, it was very, very sad. My team, when I arrived at the office, people were, my team was crying, and the leadership.
That's a humbling experience.
It was. I started crying.
Yeah.
The leadership, the Chinese leadership, they were like, why leave? What do you want to do? Do you want to go somewhere else, another country, another area?
So what made you move to payments? What made you want to do something different? I mean, I imagine 99 was at a different stage, but what attracted you to this leaving rideshare and going on to something different?
Yeah, so at the time, I think 99 was changing, right? So we went from this single digits, 3-4% market share company to almost 40% market share company. A lot more mature, a lot more stable, a lot more stable. So it was changing. So I think to your question, so there were people there that still had this burning desire of keep building, conquering the world, and etc. And there were some people that were, more comfortable with the idea of just running the company.
Yeah, they're different skill sets, right? I think you and I have talked about that before. 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 20, right? Like all of these different stages of a company, and you need different people at different points, right?
Exactly, and also I think even if you can do both, you have to decide.
Yeah.
What at that moment, what do you prefer to do, right? Mm-hmm. So I think 99 was getting to that point, and also Uber and 99, they were coming to this equilibrium.
Okay.
You could feel that both were kind of getting satisfied.
Yeah.
So 99 was getting there to the 40%, very stable marketplace across the country. Mm-hmm. So it was getting to this place where people were just getting more comfortable. Both companies were just getting into this equilibrium.
And you like being uncomfortable.
And I was still uncomfortable. I was still, what's next? What's next? What are the challenges? And I see my friends that were in the trenches with me, building 99, leaving one after the other, and I believe you met probably a few of them.
Yeah.
And in the end, I was convinced that it was also my time to leave.
Okay.
I don't know about everyone that left at the time, but for me, I could see a career plan for me in the company, right?
Sometimes those are scary to see.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is, and then it forced you to think: do I want to follow that career,
exactly,
or not, right? And it was a
probably a great career. Yeah.
It was a great career. I knew, who was on the line to succeed who and where I was, and then I was very well positioned. Everything was fine. But then yes, I think the question I had to answer was, get to the point that if everything works out, am I going to be happy?
Yeah.
And the answer at the time was no. I just decided to communicate the leadership. That was the person was not in pursuit at the time, because he was responsible for he was one of the first people to actually help run the company outside of China.
Okay.
And then I told him that I was going to leave, and it was a bit emotional, especially for me, because he was someone I liked very much. And when he started, asking me, "What do you want to do here? Can we find a position, or a country, or whatever? What do you want to do? We can find a way to make you happy." That made me even more, emotional, because
something when people want you.
And
at the same time, though, I understand the challenge, right? Is sometimes, and I've thought about this quite a bit. Like you mentioned the two-way doors. I think the other thing that Bezos also talks about is the regret minimization framework, right? And this idea of like, when I look back, so you saw your career in front of you. Well, if I don't take this chance, what's going to happen? And frankly, let's be honest, with the success you had at Uber and at 99, you'd find your way back to that path if you needed to. So what are you going to regret if you don't take the chance?
I didn't have the framework at the time in my mind.
I heard about it afterwards as well.
But that's exactly what I thought about. And then I communicated my team that I was leaving, and was also very emotional. I sent an email, communicating everybody that I was leaving. And when I got to the office, was this people were crying. I started crying also. So it was difficult, but it was a time. Mm-hmm. So I started considering offers that I was getting, mm-hmm. From larger tech companies, not in ride sharing, but more traditional tech companies, or startups and etc. And there was this guy that we worked together at 99. Mm-hmm. He just joined Hash. And he sent me a message. It was like, "Tsai, so I think we need someone like you in the company." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's talk." And then we talked. Then later on, I spoke with a partner at Kazakh, and also first actually I met the founder of Hash. Okay. We got along very well. Then I spoke with the partner at Kazakh that just invested in Hash. Mm-hmm. And all of them just, we spoke and they convinced me to join Hash. So I joined Hash as the chief product officer.
Okay.
Over the 3 years that I spent there, I eventually also became the CTO of the company.
Okay.
So when the first CTO had had a burnout, I had the founder invited me to also become the CTO of the company. I told him, I'm not a
Technical
software
person,
engineer. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
to
Different roles at different times, right? I think is also the point there, right?
Yeah,
Different skill sets, right?
no, yeah, exactly. I mean, I am I know Python, SQL, and that's it. Right?
Okay.
So yeah, I know some the technical stuff. Because at Uber 99, I'll discuss deeply about the technical stuff, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think if you want someone to lead them, you need someone that actually understand how to do it, right? And then he decided to find a CTO from hire another CTO. That guy also had a burnout, so very intense, very a lot of pressure.
Again, maybe what did you learn that ties into Stay? But briefly, I guess, and I'll summarize, and you can correct me, right? It was a fintech darling, raised a lot of money, but ended up shutting down despite having raised so much money. So
Yeah.
if you could kind of maybe just tell that story quickly and then talk more about some of the learnings that came out of it, because I imagine it ties into the question of talent density, calculated risks, but probably quite a bit about failure and other things that you learned coming out of it.
Yeah. So I think what a learning that I had over the years is, companies, they will just make mistakes, in general, many mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Those that succeed, the mistakes looks like nothing. Those who fail, all the mistakes kind of just appears much bigger than they were actually.
Yeah.
So in the case of Hash, yes, there were several things that we could have done differently. But I think in the end, if inflation wasn't as high as in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
interest rates were not as high as it was, and money was not as expensive,
Yeah.
maybe everything was just,
The environment changed pretty dramatically.
yeah, Hash would have
In 21,
raised
yeah.
Series D.
Yeah.
Hash would have money to grow,
Mm-hmm.
invest more, and then change the company to become more healthier in terms of economics. So that could have, all of that could have happened if the conditions were not as they were in 2022. So my first learning is build a company that doesn't depend on macroeconomics, on the environment.
Yeah.
The trade. So we will speak about Stay later on, but
Yeah.
one of the things that I had in mind when we were building Stay was, we need to make sure that the secular trends will help this company succeed.
Yeah.
That the secular trends will be so strong that doesn't matter who sits in the government, how much is the interest rate, the business will still make sense.
Okay.
But in the Hash's case was, so I think the biggest problem was,
So briefly, Hash was a payments processor, right?
was a payment. So it was at some point it was doing a lot of stuff, right? It was a payment processor. It started offline, then we started like going through all the chain. So the processor, the authorizer,
Yeah.
the embedded software.
Okay.
Then we went after issuing,
Okay.
acquiring,
Yep.
the full license, BICS, core banking,
Okay. So the whole payments.
so the whole
Yeah.
stack.
Yeah.
And that explains why we have two CTOs having burnout, because
Quite a bit to deal with.
it's a lot to do. I think Hash eventually, so it ran into failure, and I think the primary reason was the company was the thesis was very cash intensive.
Yeah.
So when your thesis is very cash intensive and the money is expensive,
Yeah.
then you will have problems, right?
Well, if you build it for one macroeconomic environment and that changes dramatically, that changes what you can do. So fast you can move.
So I think that was maybe that. So that was the condition, that the primary condition. That there are a lot of other things that we could discuss, because the company doesn't fail because of one thing. There are just many. So maybe we should have diversified, from this very cash intensive line of business. Maybe that should have been done. Maybe we shouldn't have spread so much into so many things, right? So before we dominated, the processing part, we were going after, the whole license for acquiring, for issuing, for banking, SCD, credit. So another learning was, maybe we should just focus on one thing first.
Yeah.
Conquer that market, and then you go do something. I'm not just not do everything at once.
Yeah.
And maybe I learned things that. So if 99 was my first Brazilian company, I would say hash was what defined hash was. It was born in those 2019 to 2021
startup boom years.
Yeah, startup boom years. And I think companies that were born during those years had many difficult years after.
Yeah.
Because in terms of culture, in terms of efficiency, easy money just changed how you operate.
Money was free.
Yeah, and yeah. So I remember I'll have to tell some people on my team at Hash that money is not free. Because it felt like people forgot that they invest their money for a reason, right?
Yeah.
They want to return, and yeah. So but there's a lot to that experience.
Yeah, I think we need a whole other podcast just about hash. And I find the topic of failure really interesting. But I want to get to your current company, Stay, and we mentioned that you're doing private pensions.
Yeah.
So maybe can you tell us just a little bit about the Brazilian pension and retirement system, and give us some background, and maybe talk about that in terms of why you wanted to build a company in that space?
Yeah. So when we were looking into what to build in Brazil, one thing that I wanted to I made sure was I wanted to make sure that I had this huge problem to solve, right? Because in my mind, it will only make sense to start a company and become an entrepreneur if the opportunity was big enough.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then I kept studying, and as I mentioned, I wanted to make sure that I could the macro trends, the secular trends were correct, and then I started studying private pensions, right? So before that, I saw that there's one of the largest changes in Brazil that people don't talk often enough is demographics. So we are going through a huge demographic shift.
Okay.
And that's something that I think the size of that shift, it's so big and people just don't really notice.
This is an aging population.
Yeah.
Brazil has certain characteristics of an emerging market and kind of the potential of growth, but on the other side has the demographics of almost like a European country, right? Like it's not like Nigeria or Egypt where 60% of the population is below 18 or something like that, right? Like Brazil has these strange demographics, right? So
yeah. So and that's something that we can also discuss in other podcasts, which is we might have missed our opportunity to become like a rich country, right? Because usually you become rich
with the demographic push.
Yeah. So we might not have used our demographic boom well enough.
Okay.
But that's another conversation. But But the thing is, demographics in Brazil is changing dramatically.
Yep.
If you look at IBGE census, every 2 years, Brazil gets older than expected every time.
Interesting.
They project that Brazil will be older than when they do the census. It's actually older.
Okay.
Fertility rate, the opposite direction, right? They think it will decrease, but then when they look at it, it decreased more than they thought. So, and from if you look at the rest of the world, there's no coming back, right? There's no country that actually went from that went that direction of getting older and then came back.
Yeah.
So Brazil, as you mentioned, so that was very precise. Brazil is almost as old as Europe. So not in a few decades, in years, Brazil will have the age profile of some European countries, but without a safety net, without infrastructure, without investments. So we are catching up with the US. US is still a little bit older than Brazil, but US has a very special demographics, right?
Well, it has the immigrant population, which is also changing in that conversation. But what is, you said we don't have a safety net here. So what happens to somebody, I think this is the question, right, as we're talking about pensions and retirement. What happens in Brazil? Like, are there government programs to support people as they get older? Do people rely on family? What happens as your average Brazilian? I also know the retirement age, right? Is it 55, 60? Like, can you explain that to us? Like, what happens if somebody retires? Yeah.
So in Brazil, we have the public pension system, which we call INSS.
Yeah.
So today, more than 70% of the Brazilians count with, they count exclusively with INSS to retire.
Okay, so 70% of the Brazilian working age population. Okay.
More than 70% of Brazilians, they will look at the INSS and assume that they will count.
That's going to pay for my bills when I'm.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, and when you look at the INSS, it's already in a very, very difficult situation. So even though Brazilian population is not that old, we have been running these huge deficits.
Yeah.
And it will get worse. So that's the second secular trend. The first was the change in demographics. Second was the state of our public pension system.
Which are related, right? Because if you have fewer people paying into it, then it's only going to get worse.
So and regardless of who is in the government, who is in charge, who is in charge of the central bank, those two things, they won't change.
Yeah.
Right. And so everybody in Brazil is entitled to retire through the public system, but and the public system in Brazil is what we call intergenerational system. So let's say
the one generation pays for the next one.
Yeah. So you don't save for you pay for someone that's already retired.
Yeah.
And you expect that someone who will come after you will pay for your retirement. Yeah. But even though the young people still make up the biggest space, the working population is still bigger than the retired population, and we are already running huge deficits. So what's going to happen when the working population shrinks, and it's not difficult to imagine what will happen. So the public system will fail. It's not if it will fail. It's a matter of when. Okay. So we keep supporting this deficit, but it will come a day when we won't be able to support that deficit anymore, and that's where stay, and that's the problem that stay wants to tackle, right?
Okay. Big enough to get you started a company.
Yeah, big enough to for me to think of myself spending decades, trying to solve this problem. When you look at private pension, it's already a huge asset class, right? Yeah. We're talking about so in reais, we're talking about something around 2 trillion reais as an asset class, right? And so and that I won't get too technical. There are different type of private pensions.
Yeah.
But as an asset class, it's huge. But if you compare it to the US or to Europe, it's still nothing.
Yeah.
To support our entire population, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So we need to create access to private pension.
So what is maybe you're answering it and I cut you off and I apologize, but what are the challenges around this? Is it, so you mentioned access, is it access, is it literacy? What is the challenge? Are the products not there? They're only available to certain types of people? What are the challenges around private pensions that limit how big it is right now?
Yeah, so I think the first challenge is product. So when you look at, nowadays, less than 10% of the Brazilians have some kind of private pension.
Okay.
And if you look, who actually use private pension in Brazil are the very wealthy people.
Right.
So they take
people that don't need it as much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they take advantage of all the tax breaks and that you get from private pensions. Unlike the US, where 70-80% of the working population has some kind of private pension. In
Yeah.
Brazil, so less than 10%, so 7-8% of Brazilians have private pensions.
Okay.
Of that 7-8%, so 2%, 3% have corporate private pensions. So in the US,
401k.
401k is just everywhere, right? The barista at Starbucks or Tim Cook at Apple,
Yeah.
all of them have some
401ks.
sort of 401k. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we want Brazil, the market to be in the future is everybody has to have private pension, right? Corporate, and especially corporate private pension. Why? Because when you look at the B2C side of things, private pension is more of an investment, right?
Yeah.
So wealthy people can invest in their brokerage and whatever. But most of the people, they need, so for them, they will benefit a lot if the company actually give them matching programs or support them on their private pension plan. And the companies, they have tax benefits to do so. But why, so if it's good for the company, good for the employee, why nobody does have it? Because of the product. So the product, similar to Nubank in 2013, when banking was very, very bad, and one of the reasons because it was you have these 5 banks dominating, right?
Yeah.
The whole industry. Same in private pensions. The 5 largest banks in Brazil control over 90% of this market.
Okay.
So, and I'm not here to to say anything about the banks. We can even partner with them.
Yeah.
Right? Our plan is to partner with them, but there was no incentive to actually build an accessible product, a customizable product, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we get in. We built this open platform where insurance companies can plug to stay at State's platform, and then they can customize pension plans. They can take off all the bureaucracy. So nowadays, if a average insurance company wants to offer a private pension plan, they have to hire the operations team to actually manually control the plan, answer phone and all of that. And the company also have to hire people to manage the plan.
Yeah, it should
We
be.
take all of that out. We use our systems, our platform to manage all of that. So that's kind of the problem we're building.
Very cool. I do want to be cognizant of your time, and you've been really kind to spend so much time with us. But coming back to just your career in tech and kind of what it taught you. So you've highlighted a few things, and I don't need to repeat them because I've repeated them a few times. But how does that apply to the problem you're solving, the business you're building, and the culture you're building at Stay? So talk about kind of what are the learnings from derivatives trading, being Taiwanese in Brazil, Uber 99 hash, the successes and the challenges. Like, how is that reflected in what you're doing at Stay, and what lessons do you have to share with other people that are building in Brazil based on what you've thought you learned and what you're actually learning now?
Yeah. So that's a complex question.
Yeah.
Right. So something that I learned at Uber 99, and then that I apply a lot at Stay is, so having this shared ambition.
Yeah.
So it won't be as fast as Uber or 99, but I believe that Stay has the potential to be as big or even bigger than these companies in Brazil or in Latin, of course. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of culture, I think so. Brazil brings a lot of good things, to our culture. So we are very, very fun.
Yeah.
We joke a lot. We laugh a lot, and that's very Brazilian.
Yeah.
But I think I also bring some of maybe my Taiwanese background, but also some of my my experience working in American banks and companies is.
Yeah.
So we are also more direct.
Yeah.
That's something that I found to be very difficult in some of more Brazilian tech companies. Is people have a little bit more difficult to
say no, tell you the truth,
give you honest feedback, criticize your work, which should be fine, right?
If it's done in the right way, right? If it's constructive, right?
Yeah. You don't need to be mean. You can be direct, right? You can just say, this work could be have done that. You could have done better, because you believe that you are hiring the best people, right?
Yeah.
So you expect the best.
Yeah.
So I think so. We mix these two things, right? We are fun. We laugh a lot. It's a great environment to be in. But we're also very direct. We don't take things personally. So we speak frankly, directly. When we get into a meeting room, we're very professional. We tackle the problem.
Yeah.
We can criticize each other, but then after we leave the room, everyone's just cool with it. So I think these are the two things that I think I kind of combine. We end up combining my experience in non-Brazilian environments with how I grew up. What I learned growing up in Brazil.
Yeah, growing up personally and professionally, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you one question that I asked about before, and then we'll wrap up here. But we talked about the difficulty of risk taking and changing, and I'm curious because it is a big challenge that you're tackling, and it's a big change for the companies that are offering. So talk to me about the sales process and the convincing your client to take a risk on you. You're a startup. You're selling something different. It's pensions, it's hard to do. So all of these things that make kind of this B2B sales a hard thing. So talk to me about how you think about the risk taking on the other side and try to give that comfort for someone to make a decision.
Yeah, so it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Because when we look internally, and as time goes on, right? Me and my co-founders and the stayers, with the passing of time and the size of the opportunities that just keep coming up, we just get more excited and more confident about the future and the potential of Stay becoming a generational company, and we become just very confident, right? But then that's when you leave 24/7 the industry.
Yeah.
Our clients, well, they don't leave in the same, right? In the same.
No, they have other incentives. You're an extra thing they're offering. Right?
Yeah. So in this case, what we offer is so they can benefit from our tech, but they have the largest insurance companies in the world securing their money, right? So it's not like their money is with state.
Yeah.
They are using, well, everybody's using our tech, but in the end of the day, you have these huge insurance companies, Swiss, American, Brazilian insurance companies that will be responsible for your money, and that money will be directed to asset managers, some of the best asset managers in Brazil and in the world. So it's not like you need to trust me to
handle your money.
To handle your money, you can trust our tech.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can trust the insurance guys and the asset managers, which are some of the best in what they do. And so that helps a lot. I think if I had to convince, now it's easier actually. So because we have these huge clients, they kind of become our
evangelizers,
evangelizers, because we come to a company and we say, that other company that's much bigger than you, they're using state, right? But to convince those huge companies, we actually had to tell them, your money won't be sitting with us right now, they will be sitting with these large insurance companies. But so that's how it works. We try to be as professional as possible, but then we also count on having these huge partners.
Absolutely. No, I can relate to that because we had similar partnerships at Teddy that helped to reduce some of that risk perception, at least. Really want to thank you for the time, but I always like to end my podcasts by asking 2 questions. And so the first one is, what does the expression "Brazil is not beginners" mean to you? You said beforehand that you really, as a semi-Brazilian, really like that expression. So please tell me, what does it mean to you?
I tend to think that some people might think this expression it has a bad connotation, but I think it's actually very practical in a sense that Brazil is great, but you just need to understand that it comes with its challenges, right? So
highs and lows.
Highs and lows. So and I remember, like, I get asked a lot, not being 100% Brazilian, why not starting something else, somewhere else, right? But Brazil has just so many opportunities because it has so many challenges, right? So I think that's Brazil's not for beginners. Is don't expect, the best infrastructure in the world. Don't expect that everything will be efficient, because probably won't. I have to renew my Brazilian green card, right? It's not,
already.
It changed. It's not efficient, but so I think Brazil is not for beginners. I think in that sense, it means that for me, that it's not, probably won't be the most efficient and most, the most safe sometimes country in the world, but it has its it's
maybe the opportunity is even bigger. Actually. I agree. And then I also really like to ask, and maybe you'll have a unique perspective again as a semi-foreigner. What's an expression or a habit that's like uniquely Brazilian or that you really like?
So I think once you are used to Brazil, you might think you start feeling that people from other countries are colder.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember, I was just in Taiwan not long ago, right? So I met this friend, such a good friend of mine. It was her and her husband. And when I got there, coming from Brazil, after years without seeing her, I thought, just probably hug each other, right?
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense. But then, when I was on my way to hug her and her husband, she was a bit like, she froze, and I stopped on my way, and then and we did this,
Yeah.
which is like,
Yeah, even more awkward.
I mean, we haven't seen each other in like 5 years. We
Yeah.
are such good friends, but when you're in Brazil, I get to the office and people are.
It happened to me, I actually did mention this on a previous episode, but it happened to me recently where I was well, not so recently, but on a recent trip to New York, I went to see a client and I gave her like a kiss on the cheek. It was just natural. I saw her, like ran into her. And like in Brazil, you do that. Like it's a client, right? This is somebody who buys projects from me. And it was a little bit awkward, but now we're cool. We're good. And like we had like a great call yesterday. And like I definitely like broke some ice with it, but it was a little bit awkward when I first did it, and I didn't realize I was quite doing it. But so that's a great one. I get where you're coming from with that. But Tsai, this was awesome. Again, so much more we could have talked about. Thanks so much for joining me. Where can people follow you? Where can people learn more about Stay? How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find us on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So Stay. My name it's Tsai Chi-Yu. It's difficult, but you won't find another Tsai Chi-Yu on your LinkedIn. And on Instagram, I am Tsai_UAI.
Okay.
Tsai Y. So my Mineiro version, and then
I don't think many people will pick up on that.
yeah, if you're not from Brazil, you probably won't understand. And then Stay is seja.stay, so SEJA.stay. Yeah.
Excellent. Tsai, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching, listening. Really appreciate it.